This is a mammoth wrap up and this isn't even half of it. Hi, Katie here. You may know me over on TikTok and Instagram as Reading with Katie Louise, and I'm here to give you my August wrap up and a few September hopefuls. So I'm not 100% sure how this happened, but I managed to read 26 books. I am going to put this out there straight from the start. This is not a normal consuming amount of books for me. This is by no means accurate of my lifestyle. I was off work in August. I chose to spend the month reading and read quite a few short books. You'll see in the wrap up that some of these were shorter books, and it does not make you any less or better as a person no matter how much you read. I do want to put that out there. I am astonished I've read this much, but let's get into what I read. So obviously in August I set out to read the Freedom McFadden collection, so I started the month with Brain Damage. This was actually a 3-star rating for me. I didn't particularly enjoy this book. I didn't really see it as a crime or thriller. It is one of Frida's earlier works. I did read it on Kindle Unlimited, so I have not paid for it. This follows someone who wakes up in a rehab centre after she was shot in the head and has actually lost part of her skull and you can only see her brain. She doesn't remember anything. She's learning to walk and talk again. And it just follows her journey in rehab and the people she meets and her trying to remember what actually happened to her. But I just found this really dull and really hard to follow. Like, I picked up a quick and easy start to August, and this book probably actually took me the longest to read. Like, definitely probably one of the least favourites of mine. There will be a Frida video ranking coming at some point, but I didn't quite finish her backlog, which was my target for August. But as you can see, I picked up several other books throughout that. But yeah, I just can't put my finger on it, but I just really didn't enjoy this. The only reason it got a 3-star is because of the character development and the story of like 2 rehab patients who I really enjoyed. But for me, it just didn't hit the mark as a thriller and therefore got a 3-star rating. Next up, and my first audio pick of the month, was The Maid by Nita Prose. I actually rated this 4 stars, so this isn't the usual like crime and thriller vibe I would go for, but I absolutely adored Molly as a character, which is what gave it the 4 stars. So this follows Molly as she discovers a body in a hotel room where she cleans, and basically she's framed for the unaliving and she's doing everything she can to prove it wasn't her and trying to sort of get a few people involved to help her prove her innocence. She's very much on her own. She's a very different character, but I just absolutely love her. She's so quirky, so funny, and you're just rooting for her throughout the whole thing. Like, I found this such a quick and easy read, and I actually cannot wait to pick up more work by Nita. But yeah, it was just such a good like read for me, and I like listened to it, and it was a cosy thriller, which I think, yeah, it's probably why I enjoyed it on audio. And yeah, I would recommend The Maid, and it was a really good audio pick start for August. Next up, and actually an unexpected addition to my TBR, was Heartstopper Volume 5. I picked this up from my local library while I was off work, and I rated it 4 stars. Although it is difficult to rate, it is a graphic novel, but I just love the story of Nick and Charlie. I have read all of these out of the library, and this was Volume 5. If you haven't seen the series either, I would definitely recommend you give that a go. It was just cute, and it just follows so many like important issues that happen, especially in teenagers, that can get missed around mental health, eating disorders. So there are a couple of trigger warnings there, but quick and easy read, as you can imagine. And yeah, I just love the Heartstopper series. Now, the next one was something on my August hopefuls and by far my biggest book of the month, and that was A Court of Silver Flames. I actually ended up rating this 4 stars. This is probably the book that took me the longest besides Brain Damage to read, but as you can imagine, I'm not used to reading so many books, and this is a fantasy. I just wanted to finish the series, if I'm being honest. It was action packed. It wasn't a 5-star because it did take me a while to get through, and I found the middle a bit sort of tedious, and maybe it could have been 100 pages shorter. But yeah, if you haven't heard of the Akatar series, just go on BookTok. It is everywhere. But yeah, I put this onto my Kindle because this beast to try and pick up for me, I just don't find comfort in reading it. But yeah, that is probably the reason why. And yeah, it was a 4-star read. It was ticked off, and I've now completed the Akatar series. But yeah, I don't really want to go into too much info about the book, as it is the 5th in the series. So if I sort of talked about what this book was about, it would give away a few spoilers for the other books. But next up was most definitely another one on my August hopefuls, and that was a book club pick. Why can I never talk? If you haven't seen, over on TikTok and BookTok, I am part of a book club. and we just pick a different genre every month. So this month's pick was Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I rated this 4 stars. I was umming and ahhing between a 3 and a 4. It is not my usual genre, and it follows the story of Tova and her friendship with an octopus. Yes, you heard me right. And the octopus is called Marcellus. To be quite honest, Marcellus made this book. I did tear up at the end. Their friendship is just something so beautiful and so amazing. Like, yeah, it just follows those, and it follows the story as Marcellus tries to get his family back together. Like, not his family, sorry. It gets Tova to meet like family and friends, and just tries to reconnect her with people as she works at the aquarium. And it is just a story about how clever they are, and you'll realise if you read this why you tear up. This was such a lovely, gorgeous read and a perfect book club pick in my opinion. Next up was definitely not in my August hopefuls, as I decided to join in the, there's like a group I'm with of people, and we do a bit of a bookish bingo, and I decided to join that bookish bingo this month. So this book is Small Joys by Elvin James Mensah. This is a book of so many things, but so many things that just fit so well into the story. This was a 5-star rating for me. So I listened to this on audio, and it was the most amazing story. Like, I felt so many emotions, and I never thought I would feel emotional in an audio book, just because half the time, as much as you are listening to it, you're probably not maybe taking it in as much. And yeah, it follows a guy who comes back from university after he's dropped out. He's really suffering with his mental health. There are a lot of like trigger warnings around mental health. It discusses like relationships, sexuality, and like religious beliefs. It just covers a bit of everything, but it's not in your face. But it just follows Harley and his relationships as he like looks at how like he can like build his relationships up with the people he's come from, like, because he struggles to talk about his mental health, and I think that's something so vital that we never see in particularly people who are studying education and the difficulties that they come across. But yeah, it was just such a good and well written book, and I'll definitely be looking out for more books by this author. An absolute fantastic recommendation, and even if you are not into sort of that kind of genre, I definitely give it a whirl. Definite recommend. I need a tea break already. This is going to be a long one. So next up was part of the nostalgic read along, which I obviously had to complete with it being the end of August, and that was Girls in Tears by Jacqueline Wilson. I actually rated this one 3 stars. This is definitely my least favourite, and it does come with a disclaimer that these books are really hard to rate. They are children's books at the end of the day, and I think it's interesting to see my point of view as an adult to my point of view reading these as like a child slash preteen. This one follows a series of things that make girls cry, and I felt really uncomfortable reading this. And I know it happens, I've been there myself as that preteen, teenager years, particularly high school years, but it just got a bit weird for me. Like, since when were kids so awful? And this was written before I was this age. Like, I don't know, I can't quite put my finger on it, but this definitely wasn't a favourite for me. And yeah, I think from a child's point of view, you can probably relate, but from an adult's point of view, it's just pure mean. But yeah, another unexpected addition to my August hopefuls, and that was Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. So I actually came across a read along over on Book Talk with Days, who I will put up on the screen. And yeah, honestly, I really enjoyed this book for a start. This was a 5-star. These are on Kindle Unlimited. There is a whole series, all of the reviews incoming. But yeah, Off to the Races, it follows 2 characters whose names I've already forgotten. But yeah, it follows 2 people, and as always, it's a romance series, it's small town romance, and it follows Billy and Vaughn. It has come to me. Billy comes to the farm as someone looking for a job. Vaughn believes Billy by name to be a boy, and only realises then when she arrives that she is indeed not a boy. They clash straight away. You can imagine the enemies to lovers, but I just found this such quick pace, and I adore Billy as a character. The 5 stars came from Billy alone. Billy's character is hilarious, is lovable, is relatable, and quite frankly, I would love to have as much, it's like as much gusto and to be able to stand up for myself as much as Billy does in that book. And that's what I absolutely loved about the relationship, which is why it was a 5-star read for me. Again, it is the Gold Rush Ranch series. They are available on Kindle Unlimited, so if you've read the Chestnut Spring series, it's most definitely a go-to, and you'll see all my other reviews later on in this video, but what a way to start series. And again, wasn't on my August hopeful, as you can see where this is going, I actually picked up The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn. This is again another bingo card prompt. I had to pick up something that had been on my TBR the longest. The pages, you can't even see because of the lighting, are quite yellow. That's how long this has been on my TBR. So this follows a woman who has got agoraphobia and is stuck in her house after an accident happened many years ago. She sees a crime happen across the road with people who live in the house. She reports it, and basically she's made out to be somebody who is a bit of a loon and is making it all up. But she's adamant she's not, but oh my gosh, this could have been a 3-star for me, to be honest. However, the last 20% of this as an audiobook was phenomenal. It just brought it straight back up. The drama, I was literally like scared to listen to it on my own in case somebody made me jump while I had my headphones on. Like, it was that kind of jumpy. And yeah, honestly, didn't think I was going to enjoy this as much in the end. Definitely glad I picked up in audio because I probably may potentially have given up on this in physical. But the ending made up for it, no doubt. So this was a definite 4-star read. So again, another unexpected. Again, you can see the theme in this video, and I picked up Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This was sent to me very kindly over on TikTok, and I got sent the whole series, so I have Powerless, Powerful and Reckless. So I did pick up Powerless, and I did rate it 4 stars. If you loved the Hunger Games to watch and to read, I'd definitely pick this up. It is Hunger Games with a fantasy twist. So it follows Paden and Kai. So Kai is sort of like an elite, and they are entered into a games where only one will win. And Paden is actually someone who, had they known who she actually was, because she's powerless, she probably would have been unalive there and then, but she's been living a life pretending to be basically on the poorer side of the fantasy world, and has been faking being a sidekick. She then enters the games, and it is a case of who wins. This had me absolutely crushed by the end, and I was so invested in finishing this book. Like, honestly, if Hunger Games girlies, definitely give this a go. Obviously, it goes without saying, I read Powerless, so I had to go straight into Powerful, but this was only a 3-star read for me. What I think is partially my fault though, because as I read this, it followed 2 characters, one who you meet in Powerless, and that is Adina, and then the other one is a character that you don't meet called, I think they shortened his name to Mac. And it follows their story, but it intertwines with Powerless, so I feel like because I read this after, you kind of get a massive spoiler, and I don't think that's intentional, but I didn't realise that at the time that you were meant to read it as like a tandem. So for me, I just felt like I was waiting for the inevitable to happen, which is a shame, but I also can't tandem read. My brain just doesn't process things like that. That's just my personal opinion. But yeah, definite. Again, it has nothing to do with Powerless as such. It's just 2 characters that, because you see the outcome of one of the characters and you know where their life ends up, it kind of ruins it. But it's a little short novella, nice little palate cleanser. Another read was Birthday Kisses by Monica Murphy. I purely read this because the bookish bingo card that I had needed one that was birthday themed. It was 50 pages long. I've rated it 3 stars, but I mean, I don't really think you can rate a 50-page novella. I purely did it for Goodreads purposes. Didn't even write a review on it. I can't even remember much about it. It talks about a character whose birthday falls on Christmas Day, and they always do 2 separate things, but there's just a lot going on in life, and yeah, I can't even remember it really. I did read it towards the beginning of August, but yeah, I think you need to read the rest of the series. I think I just picked it up on a whim and probably should have read the rest of the series first, but that's Birthday Kisses. So, I finally started trying to tackle some of my August hopefuls. Obviously you saw earlier in this video that I did manage to read A Court of Silver Flames, I then did decide to finally start going back to Frida's backlog, and the next one I picked up was Do You Remember? I rated this 4 stars. This follows someone who wakes up in their own bed and panics because the person who they last remember being engaged to is not in the bed, but they are married to somebody else. It turns out she had an accident where she ended up forgetting everything about her life, and she wakes up every morning forgetting who she is. She's written herself a letter explaining what has gone on, but is it all that it seems? As you can imagine from a Frida book, it clearly isn't. Honestly, didn't see the plot twist of this, and I found it a really quick and easy read. I mean, I read it within like a day and a half. I won't say one sitting because I did keep picking it up because I was busy around this time. But yeah, it was a quick and easy read, and definitely something different, something original. It did get a little bit like annoying sort of halfway through, hence why I dropped it to a 4. because obviously she was waking up and forgetting everything every day, and the start of every chapter was kind of that. So that's the only thing. But actually the storyline was really good for me, and I definitely would put that somewhere around the middle to high ground of Frida's books. Continuing on with the Frida read along, I went straight into another one, and that was The Ex. I also rated this one 4 stars. It was very peculiar. I'm not really sure how I feel about it now, but it follows a point of view of the new girl and the ex. So it starts at the beginning with the guy breaking up with his girlfriend because he just doesn't love her anymore. Down the line, he meets a new girl in a bookshop, and they start dating. You get the point of view of the ex, who continues to talk about, who continues to stalk them, etc. And yeah, so that is sort of the point of view that you get in. But yeah, the plot twist at the end for me was definitely a good one, hence why it is a 4 star. Continuing on, I did continue with Daisy's read along, and the next in the Gold Rush Run series was a photo finish by Elsie Silver, and I did rate that 4 stars. So this one continues on from the first book, where you meet Cole, who is Vaughn's brother, and he comes to the farm later on to join, and you meet Violet Eaton, who, if you've read Chestnut Springs, you will know that surname quite easily. And yeah, so it follows their relationship, their enemies to lovers, forced proximity vibes. Really enjoyable. I just didn't want to pick it up as much as Off to the Races, which is why I kind of didn't it just didn't hit the 5 star mark for me. It was still really enjoyable. The whole series was still enjoyable, so definitely worth a read. And yeah, I just love all the titles as well. It doesn't give anything away, but I'm just loving the horse riding themed romance. But yeah, another 4 star read. Next up was an audiobook pick, and again it was for the bookish bingo. I had to read cat themed fiction, so I picked up The Cat Who Saved Books. This was a 2 star listen for me. I found it so bizarre. It follows a cat who comes to life, talks to the person who has just lost his grandfather and is currently tidying up the bookstore before he moves away. The cat takes them into different labyrinths to try and save books. The ending of this was so disappointing, and I'm not saying don't give it a go. I've heard a few people say they really enjoyed it. I just don't think it's for me. But it was just a really bizarre pick. I just don't know what to say about it. It was all a bit bizarre and a bit, I don't know. It was a quick and easy read, but yeah, definitely wouldn't be recommending that one to anyone. It's time to carry on with a bit more Freida McFadden, and the next book I picked up was The Wife Upstairs. This got a 3 star rating for me. Had I not read another book which is a spitting image of this book, it would be easily a 4, 4.5, 5 star. So The Wife Upstairs follows a woman who is looking for a job, actually saves somebody else's life, and then comes across somebody else and basically offers her a job to be company for his wife, who is pretty much bedbound / wheelchair bound upstairs in her room. If you've read a book by Colin Hoover, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. This was far too close to it for me, and that is the reason I had to knock it down. It was not a unique storyline, and yeah, it just became disappointing. I read it because there are some differences in it and the ending was different, but again it was who do you believe, and yeah, it was very much Team Diary or Team Adam, and it just seemed too familiar for me, and that's why I had to rate it 3 stars. It wasn't a terrible book. Again, if I hadn't read the book by Colin Hoover, then I probably would have given it a higher rating because it would have been unique to me. But like I said, I feel like it's been not copied, but far too similar. As you know, I wanted to get through my Freida backlog, so I did pick up one in audiobook as it became available on something where I got a 3 months trial, and that is The Surrogate Mother. Again, this was another good book, but it just seemed a bit familiar for me, and again I gave it 3 stars. I just didn't particularly rate it. I don't know, I just can't put my finger on it. It did seem familiar. It was all a bit bizarre and out there in my opinion. I mean, you got towards the end and it was just outright ridiculous. I was listening to it on audio thinking, good grief, could it get any more ridiculous? So for a bit of context, it follows Abby and her husband, who are trying to have a baby and are going through adoption. That adoption falls through literally at the last minute in the middle of her baby shower, and it comes to her receptionist to basically come in and offer to be a surrogate. She will use her eggs and Abby's husband's sperm to make the baby, and yeah, as you can imagine, it's not as straightforward as that. It's very weird, very bizarre, but what infuriated me was Abby's husband. When you listen or read this book, you'll probably find him quite an infuriating character. You should know your wife. You should trust your wife and believe your wife. He had no belief in his own wife, and it just frustrated me. But yeah, definitely been interesting to continue to read Frida's books, but yeah, this was a very bizarre one. Next one was a potential arc that I wanted to read this month, as it does release on the 5th of September, and that is The Reunion by MJ Arledge and Steph Broadrib. I rated this 4 stars. As you probably already know, especially if you're over on my other platforms, you know how much I love an MJ Arledge book. So this follows a group of friends who all meet up for a reunion 30 years after they left school, apart from one of them is missing. One girl disappeared one day when she was 16. She was meant to meet one of the girls in the group and she never showed. That girl is now a detective. And a body then discovered in the old school where they all went to as it was about to be knocked down, and that body was of the missing girl. And obviously the detective does everything to stay quiet so that she can investigate her friend's unaliving. This was very twisty. I really enjoyed it. The only issue I had was that NetGalley had issues with formatting, and I've said this again and again on all socials. I've told them to sort it out. I contacted them about it way before I needed to read the arc so they could rectify it, but they just didn't. It was a rant that came because I basically got told that there was nothing wrong with it, despite like one chapter had 2 words on one line, 3 words, and it was very jagged, and I end up reading it like that, so it doesn't become an enjoyable reading experience. But that is unrelated to the review of the book, obviously. But yeah, the actual book itself, an absolute recommend. I mean, I know I go on about MJ Arledge, but I'm definitely going to now look into Steph Broadrib as well, because obviously they've written that book together. And obviously it means you can pick that one up without picking up the Helen Grace series that are behind me. But yeah, definite recommend. It releases 5th of September, so it will probably be out by the time I actually put this out. But yeah, what a good arc to read. Another tea break. So next up is The Frontrunner by Elsie Silver. This is the 3rd in the Gold Rush Ranch series. As I said, I did read the whole series this month. The 3rd in the series follows, her name's gone, the vet who you meet in the first 2 books, and Stefan Dalka, or Dalsa, I don't really know how you say his last name. He also appears in the first 2 books as like a side character, and their relationship. I found this a really enjoyable, quick and easy read. The ending and the drama that came with this though, amazing. It was quick and easy. It follows their relationship, so it's a bit of a like hidden romance kind of thing. But it is really, really enjoyable. The slow burn is not too slow burn, which is what I like about this series. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't want the action straight away, but I also don't want it in the last 10% of the book. So this had like a nice happy medium. The relationship really developed, and it wasn't just a case of going straight from like enemies to lovers, etc. But yeah, a really enjoyable book. So the next few books I actually read in a 12-hour readathon, which is why I've managed to read so many books this month. And the first one is Want to Know a Secret by Frida McFadden. I am so close at this point to completing her backlog. So this one follows a woman who is like a bit of a vlogger. She does cooking shows on YouTube, and she gets a text going, want to know a secret, basically, and starts reeling off some of her secrets to this person. The neighbours have just moved in next door. They seem very suspicious, and basically this woman's life starts unravelling. It's a very weird one. I did rate it 4 stars though, because it was a quick and easy read. I mean, I read it pretty much within 24 hours, give or take, picking it up a lot. But it was just a really quick and easy read. Like, it was just a good book. Like, I don't know what else to say really. The plot twists at the end were good, and especially the epilogue, I was like, whoa. So if a book has a good epilogue, definitely worth a read. Next up was one of Frida's novellas that released in August, which I didn't even know about until I saw other people reading it, and that is A Widow's Husband's Secret Lie. This was 124 pages, read it within probably an hour. Honestly, it was a 4-star rating, but this was so different for Frida, but in a good way. The main character in this story is absolutely hilarious. And I don't know if it's intentional for her to be hilarious, but she's just so funny, so daft. Like, I can't explain it. It comes with a crime thriller twist, but the ending just left me reeling, and I was like, what? Like, I laughed because it was all so bizarre, and I think because it was such a short novella, you kind of expected that. I did read The Gift, at Christmas by Frida McFadden, and that was only like 50 odd pages, and it was a massive disappointment for me. I didn't really see the point of a novella, and I thought, how can you write a crime novella? But Frida has definitely done it with that book. Yeah, it's definitely worth a pick up. It is on Kindle Unlimited and a really quick and easy read. Like I said, I read it pretty quickly. It's only 124 pages and definitely well worth the read. This has cropped up a lot now. Obviously I keep referring to the bookish bingo I'm doing with a few of the guys that I met over on Book Talk, and the next book was Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I picked this up because of a bookish bingo. I have seen it about a lot on Book Talk, but I just haven't really seen the fascination in it, if I'm being honest. But I did actually end up rating it 4 stars. So this follows a series of people. So there are 4 main stories in this book. It's only a couple of 100 pages, and it follows a series of like 4 people or 4 stories where they go into the cafe, and basically there's a particular seat that lets them go back or forward in time. You cannot rectify the future or like change the present, anything like that, but it's just for a chance for people if they haven't said goodbye before somebody's passed away, that kind of thing. So it was a really, really interesting, like so yeah, it was a really nice, interesting read. I didn't end up rating it 4 stars because I did feel quite a lot of like love for this book. But yeah, that is my review. At this point, it was time to conclude the Gold Rush Ranch series by Elsie Silver, and that was with a 4 star. This took me a little longer to read and was still a 4 star rating, just because I went away at the end of August, so the reading did slow right down, as you can tell by the amount of books I've talked about here. But yeah, this book follows Nadia, who is Stefan, who you've met previously in the series, sister, and Griff, who is also Stefan's best friend. So it's a brother's best friend romance. It's an age gap romance as well. But I just loved this story. Like, there was so much like respect at the same time as obviously the love side of things. And I just found this really interesting. They both had trauma as well, and it was just a well written story, and I did really enjoy reading it. It's definitely my second favourite in the series. It didn't quite hit the 5 star mark for me. As much as like it was time that I couldn't keep reading it, it was also a bit of like I didn't feel inclined to pick it up as much. But yeah, it's still a lovely story and a lovely way to end the series. Absolutely recommend. If you haven't read either Chestnut Springs or the Gold Rush Ranch, definitely pick both of these series up. All available on Kindle Unlimited. But yeah, it was just a lovely way to end the series. The book of the month for me was The Fall by Louise Jensen. So I actually rated this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was really fast-paced, short chapters. It follows Kaylee, who is pushed or has fallen off the bridge. No one really knows what's going on. They suspect foul play, and it follows a dual like timeline point of view, where you see Kaylee in the lead up to the accident, and then from the point of view of Kaylee's mum, the rest of the time with the occasional sort of change in point of view. But honestly, did not see who did it. It did get a bit far-fetched towards the end, which is why it's dropped from a 5 to a 4 for me, but it is really fast-paced. But I just found that if they'd left it who did it, it'd be a 5 star read, but they just had to add in loads of extra drama, which I didn't think was necessary to the story. It was just a bit of a sideline. As much as it brought drama and it made me want to keep listening, it just seemed a bit far-fetched by the end of it all. So yeah, I don't know what went on there, but definitely recommend. It is really quick and easy to read. Like I said, I listened to this on audio. It did also hit another bookish bingo prompt, but I did already own this, so I thought it was the perfect way to tick that off the list. But yeah, a good read for the month. I finally made it to the last book of the month, and that was The Holiday by T.M. Logan. I absolutely adored the curfew and rated that 5 stars. However, I really didn't enjoy this as much. This was a 3 star for me. I just found it all a bit far-fetched and all a bit dull. So it follows multiple points of view as 4 friends go on holiday with partners and children, and the main character, Kate, believes that her husband is cheating on her with one of those. It then just follows her being paranoid the whole time. Nothing really happened, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say this, until 80% of the book. That's what redeemed it up to 3 stars for me. Like, the 80% to the 100%, really good. But considering how hooked I was on The Curfew by T.M. Logan, I just didn't feel the same about this book. Basically a crime does happen later on, but you just don't find out anything until the last like 5%, and the crime happens about 84%. I ended up having to put this onto my Kindle because I was really struggling. Like, the chapters are short and it is a really like decent book, but it just wasn't the crime and thriller I was expecting when I'd read such a good book by T.M. Logan, so that might be why. But yeah, unfortunately not the best thing I've read by him, but I have still got The Mother to read. I know My Dream Home is out, so hopefully he can redeem himself. But yeah, unfortunately it was not the best way to end the month. So obviously I did have a few August hopefuls. I did say that I had an arc to read, which was Last Time We Met. Unfortunately I had to DNF this. I can't really say I started it, which is why I've not classed it in my reading wrap up. Just because the formatting on it was too ludicrous. I just didn't feel inclined to pick it up, and it just didn't hook me in with the first few pages. And when the document is that badly formatted, thanks NetGalley, I can't read it. So that obviously didn't come across in my August hopefuls. And the other thing for my August hopefuls that I didn't get a chance to get to was the last book in the Freedom McFadden collection, and that is Dead Med. So I will hopefully be reading that in September. So obviously that is on my September hopefuls list. I've heard so many mixed reviews about this book. It's been one I've been kind of putting off picking up. So I'm hoping it is still as good. It is one of the longer books as well, which I think is why I've kind of left it, which is ridiculous considering I'm now back at work. So I don't have near enough time to read as much as I did before. But yes, I do intend to pick up Dead Med. But it's also on my September TBR is The Ace of Spades. I actually have this on my bookish bingo prompt to tick off. I've seen quite a few good things about it as well, so I thought I'd give it a go. It looks quite quick and easy. It is a young adult, and I have got this out of the library, so that does kind of bump it up the list for me. But yeah, so this one follows a private academy where money paves the hallways and the students are never less than perfect until now, because anonymous texter Aces is bringing 2 students' dark secrets to life. So it sounds really good read. This will be probably one of the first books I read this month. I am on with an arc which I'll talk about in a second. But yeah, this will definitely be on my September TBR. Next up on my September TBR is an arc that has actually already released, but when I was sent the book was told I had until the middle of September to review it, and that is The Girl in the Fire by Sarah K. Stevens. I am actually almost finished on this at time of recording, so I'll probably have finished it by the time I edit and put this video out. But this follows a girl who is basically, there is, from the 2 points of view, is from Damien, who is the fiancé of a woman who has now actually been believed to have faked her own death in a fire 10 years previous, and then it follows Leanne, which the timeline up to her unaliving. And I'm just getting to the point now, so I'm actually, at time of recording this, only 10% left to go. So honestly, I started this on the 1st of September and it was such an easy read. It is edging towards a 5-star, all depending on how the ending goes. I didn't want to put it down, but I did have to go back to work. So unfortunately I couldn't finish the book, but I will be finishing it after recording this. But yeah, so it is heading on to be a really good start to September, and yeah, just such, yeah, I just don't have words. It is a really good book. We try and find out what's going on and why she is alive when her body was identified despite being unidentifiable due to a fire. But yeah, such an interesting story. Wasn't 100% sure it was going to go. It's literally like 370 pages as well, and it just, honestly, I'm definitely going to be recommending this book. So I also do have, well, 2 other arcs to talk about, but I'll talk about this one first, as this one does release at the end of September, and that is Meet Me in a Mile. This is a romance. I don't really know much else about it. I am really fortunate that I am on the pre-approved list for Storm Publishing with some of the copies of their books that go on to NetGalley. And this was one that came up, and it is a running related romance. That's all I can tell you. So hopefully in my September wrap up I'll be able to tell you about it and if it's any good. But that is obviously going to be on my September TBR purely because I need to get it read before the end of the month. I also have another arc which I will probably have read before the end of September, as its release date is the 1st of October, and that is Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter is by far my favourite romance of like ever. I absolutely adored reading that book back in 2023, and it was just such a wholesome book. It was just romance but no smut. It was very fairy tale. It was just gorgeous. I am just praying, because I've seen some mixed reviews about this arc already. I just hope I enjoy it as much as Better Than the Movies and it is not just one book too far. I don't actually know much about it. Lynn Painter is one of my auto-buy authors, so yeah, definitely excited to see where this is going. But that will probably be another one on my list for September. I think I am going to leave my September hopefuls there for now. I am back at work after 6 weeks off. September is always a challenging month in education because the children have had a long time off. It's a new routine, new class. So I am definitely going to leave it there for September hopefuls, as I don't want to put too much strain on myself to get too many books read. I am still going with the bookish bingo though, so I imagine I will put out a few more. I know I've got Queer Little Nightmares that I want to read. I've got some poems I want to get through. The I can't even say it, Pocanthus poems. So they'll probably crop up, but they may not crop up in my wrap up just because some of them are not necessarily something I would normally rate, are really short or yeah. I will probably have a look through for some audiobooks in that time because I will want to put my headphones into work just to see what is available on the different platforms that I can listen on. But yeah, I don't want to put too much pressure on myself for September. I do normally slump in September. I did last year after reading 19 books in the month of August, and if I've read 26 this month, then definitely need to give myself a break, and I'm just not going to have too much of a hard time. But yeah, it was such a positive August, and I want September to be me enjoying the books that I'm reading. So yeah, absolute smasher of a month in August. I hope I have as good and an enjoyable month as September. But as always, thank you so much for sticking, especially as this is probably one of my longer videos. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me on my journey through my August wrap up and my September hopefuls. I will definitely see you all at the end of September with a wrap up, and as always, please like and subscribe for future videos, and thanks again for watching.